And we are live on the PHU Dynasty podcast. This is episode 79, and we are here to bring you a great show with discussion about our playoff push. We are in the thick of the season right now, and we have the trade deadline coming up as well in week 13, so that should be very exciting around the league as the playoff picture starts to get more clear. Just so much to talk about this week, especially with the trade deadline for the actual NFL. So we had some moves, some I wouldn't call any of them seismic, but just solid moves overall. Just for probably better for NFL than they are for fantasy. I'm thinking, like the Deontay Johnson one, for example. It sucks for Justin actually on that one, probably because at least he had a target hog and now you don't. So that kind of stinks. But we were just talking before we got on the show about the London game this week, and I was kind of Germany game. Sorry, I should have said a Europe game. Just what an awful matchup it is on paper. I mean, it's like the NFL does this to punish the Europeans for some reason. They just give them the worst games possible.
I mean, last year they got They got the Chiefs and Dolphins last year.
Yeah, who did the Bucks play last year in Germany? We played somebody. I forgot who it was, but it clearly wasn't a very memorable game.
As far as seeding for the NFL draft and stuff, it's an interesting game. But outside of that, because there's such a mediocrity. It's almost a third of the league is got 2 wins.
Well, yeah, I read somewhere. I think it's 7 teams or 8 teams have 2 and 7.
Yeah, and then there's a 2 and 6 team in there too. I think it might be is it the Dolphins? Who's 2 and 6?
It might be the Dolphins because they had their bye already.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird season. It's very, very top heavy this season. It feels like we kind of already know who the playoff guys are going to be this year in the NFL. And
yeah. Well,
the wild cards are kind of meh.
It's mirroring the Dynasty League.
A little bit, yeah. We can kind of get right into it. Here's a great segue here. So I'm going to pull up. So I've been using this website. You've probably seen some of the infographics I've been putting in the Discord. The website is a great name, Sean. It's called DynastyDaddy.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not. Dynasty Daddy. So if you ever want to go check this out, it's a really cool site. They have a lot of cool analytics, just way more than anything I've seen, just kind of available. So it's kind of fun to click around. And Sean, I got to tell you, they have a great thing in the site that I found just today. They have trade trees. So you can look up trade trees from past trades to see what the value ended up being. So that's a whole, we could do 6 episodes on that, Sean. That's crazy.
That's a lot less legwork for us too. That's great.
A significant amount less. And I hope I don't know how far back it goes. But I was able to see a couple of them just off rip here. So that'll be a great one for the offseason.
You just import your league history into their site?
Yeah, all you got to do. So you go to dynastydaddy.com and then it gives you an option to log in using your sleeper credentials. And then you could do any league. It doesn't have to just be our league. It could be a regular league. And then it also gives you the opportunity to sort it based on the player values from keep trade cut, from sleeper, from ADP, from all different things. So you can basically custom tailor it to how you want it to look. So it's pretty cool. And then they also show you, wins above replacement, which we'll get into here in a little bit. I find that to be a very interesting stat. And that's one that James with Dynabook had kind of started working on. If you guys remember from the off season, it's kind of a similar vibe to that, where it kind of shows you who the real league winners are and the real people that affect the actual game on a week-to-week basis. So with that, I'm going to pull up the playoff probability chart. So I'm sure you guys have seen this here. This is basically showing the current standings. So I have it sorted by the current standings. So as you can see, the cheese fries up top with the long gamers and the battle axes in the top 3. And if you look just to the right, it'll show you the projected record for each team and then the playoff percentage for the make playoffs. And as you can see, it seems like we have a very solidified top 4 for the playoffs, which I would generally agree with. And it gets a little bit muddier as you go down, but it's still very high percentages for both the Plague and the Baton Rouge Bombers. Now, I will say the Plague are at 4 and 5, and they have a little work to do, but it seems like they have a pretty good shot based on, and this is based on keep trade cut player value, I believe. So they're using that as the value. But then on top of that, like, so this is not factoring in any sort of draft picks or anything like that. So it should be pretty straightforward. The interesting one here is the bottom three have less than 1% chance. So we are toast, and there's no mathematically, I don't think there's any way we could get in at this point. So that's that. But then the Muskrats have a 35% make playoff rate with a 6-8 record for projections. So that's an interesting one. Sean, what on here is catching your eye by chance?
I'd be hard pressed to not be the owner that would point out that I have the highest win finals odds on here, but
you do.
It does just stick out considering I don't consider my teams significantly better than the other top 2 to 3 teams there besides my team. So it's interesting that it's pulling that kind of number.
And I think that might be, well, I think it also depends too. Like if you look at like the first round buys, for example,
Sure.
You have the second highest first round buy. I'm not sure if it's pulling in metrics for this strength of schedule, perhaps down in the playoffs. Like once we get to the playoffs, like what those players matchups look like. So that's probably a piece of this, but I can't totally tell. And you could sort this too by like metrics. So like there's some other fun ones down here. Let's see, like run the table. There's some interesting ones. So like, we could add run the table. Is anybody projected to run the table? No. So that's exciting. There's some other fun ones. So you can come in here and mess around with it too. But there's all kinds of interesting stuff to choose from.
I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the top 4 teams have a lot of games against each other left.
So that's another thing. So as you come into this site, there's also we can look at, as you mentioned, there is the I think it's in standings, maybe not, schedule comparison. So this is I think somebody pointed this out in the chat the other day. So this is what your standings would look like if you had somebody else's schedule. So this is kind of a fun graphic to see. So like there is a world where I would go 3-6, but there's also a world where I'm 0-9 depending on schedule. So I always find it funny. Like this one for Scavelli, I thought was interesting. Like there is a schedule that he'd be 5-4 if he had the Muskrat schedule. So that, I mean, it's pretty interesting just to come in here and kind of look through these things. So I encourage y'all to go do that if you want. And then league play record. This is as the team's record versus each team during that week. So the table is going to be sorted by the most overall wins. So there's some fun, cool metrics in here. But we're going to go back. We're going to start talking about each team specifically. So we're going to start off here with the Toronto Battle Axes, who have a pretty nice situation right now as far as the standings go. And this is sorted by WAR. So if you're not familiar with WAR or you don't watch baseball, it's a huge thing in baseball. But basically it is saying how many wins would you have if you had this player in your lineup over a replacement level player. So it's an interesting stat because I do feel like it does a great job, at least in baseball, of showing like who the truly the true difference makers are. If you were to, let's say you trade one of these guys away and you replace them with an average player, like what are you going to end up with? So I find this to be an interesting stat. And honestly, I wish I knew how they formulated this. Like I'm sure there's like some maybe like help thing where it shows you like how they're coming up with this, but I think it's pretty damn accurate. So starting off at the top, obviously the 2 running backs, Sean, I mean, these were the guys that we talked about all off season. Yep. You know, how will the situations change with a potentially new team? And the answer is it's worked out absolutely perfectly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you got one guy, like I bet the over on Derrick Henry touchdowns on FanDuel before the season started, and I've already hit the over.
Which is crazy because we're only in week 10. I mean, that is insanity.
So Derrick Henry already made me money this year, so can't hate on that guy. And then
I mean, he's been
Saquon is running with freedom for the first time. He's like, it's like when you release like an animal that's never touched grass before in its life. You know those videos, and it's just inspirational. That's Barkley on the Eagles with an offensive line.
I mean, he's literally doing like those like little fancy bunny hops things too. Like it's working.
Spinning around, reverse hurdling people. It's, oh my god.
I mean, even if the Eagles do nothing and fall short in the playoffs, at least you got an exciting player to watch week in, week out. Because I mean, that guy's sick.
And their strength of schedule the rest of the year is really light. so he's going to be
well.
running the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, rest of season. I mean, you could argue him as RB1. Even I mean, it's tough with Henry, getting all these
between those
touchdowns.
two, so it's not really that big of a problem for.
I mean, Scavelli is going to be just fine with these two running backs throughout the season. And I guess we should mention this too, because we did have a trade between Scavelli and Tibbs that happened, I believe, earlier this morning.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the trade overall? I thought it was pretty good for Tibbs, considering he didn't really have like a quarterback.
Lockett
in a fourth for Russell Wilson, I believe.
Russell. I mean, it's fine.
I mean, personally, I don't view Lockett as much of anything at this point. I mean,
I think he's ideally like a 5th or 6th wide receiver, but Scavelli's in a bit of dire straits currently with his receivers. So
yes, I mean, with Evans being out and Diggs now, he's kind of got to find playable assets. And of course, for Tibbs, like he needs a quarterback in the worst way right now with Dak being out, and then Richardson being benched. So I thought it was just a good deal for like both sides, and for Tibbs to get a starting quarterback with, I don't want to call it like a ton of upside, but just a solid quarterback that's looked pretty good.
Russ was a top 12 quarterback last year, so like he seems like his moon ball has not left him. So
no, even I mean, I found it interesting. I was kind of poking around. He's 36 now almost, and I just didn't. It's hard to. I just don't think of him as that like older guy because he still moves around pretty well. But I mean, he's up there in age, but he's still. I mean, like you said, the moon ball is still there, and now he's got Mike Williams to throw to as well. So it's just moonball city in the passing game for that squad. So interesting there. Scavelli has quite a few starter level war tier players here, so we can get into a few of them. Obviously, Tony Pollard. I'll start with him, I guess. He's been a bit of a surprise for me because I mean I didn't have the highest expectations for him this season. I'll be honest with you, and he's proven me kind of wrong. He's looked pretty solid overall, and he's getting a grand majority of the touches. I think the last 3 weeks he's had over 80% of the snaps in each of those games. And I think last week he had 28 carries, which I don't think he's ever had that many carries in his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, quite a few of those like really tallied up in the overtime period against the Patriots. Like I don't think they threw the ball in overtime. I think they ran it like 7 or 8 times in a row.
And looking at his stats here, Sean, he's only had one game with less than 16 carries this whole season, and that was just like a random.
Yeah, I mean that would explain the report that came out today about them monitoring his workload. So
yeah, it's funny because like I mean before the season everybody was like, oh, it's going to be this crazy Tyjae Spears 50-50 split, and that has just not happened at all.
Spears got hurt.
And now he's hurt too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I mean, he's RB21 on the year. He did have a week 5 bye, so I mean, if he had played all 9 games so far, he'd be probably in the top 20 there. So to have him on a new team, to have Barkley on a new team, to have Henry on a new team, to even Aaron Jones, we'll get to him in a minute. I mean, all these guys, new teams, and it's all working, and they're all above, quality war numbers here, and they're all above replacement value. So really, really good running back room. And Brian Robinson too, obviously has been very solid this year as well. So, I mean, from a RB room perspective, this team is very set. Receivers, a much different story here, Sean.
I got bleak.
Though.
It got bleak real quick.
But this is kind of the worry we had with this team. I mean, we knew that the depth would be challenged probably at some point this season. I don't think we expected all of the guys to get hurt like this. I mean, with Diggs and Evans. I mean, obviously Diggs was massively overperforming my expectations this year.
Sure.
And he was great. So I mean, it was a little bit harder to lose him now after kind of like getting this boost. And then Evans, of course, with the hamstring injury. I really don't know when he's coming back. I guess they've said it'll be a couple, 3-4 weeks or something like that. But that's one of those injuries I get scared about.
Post bye week, he was working out individually on the side today.
That's something.
So he's starting to do something. So that helps. I mean,
we need him back.
For how competitive the team has been without their top 2 receivers, like makes you think that they could maybe find a way to maybe sneak into a wild card in the NFC if they get a couple games here. So more motivation.
They gotta get their defense back together. I mean, it's just they just don't have it when it. I mean, like literally this past Monday with DeAndre just tearing up Josh Hayes, like it's just no competition almost in the secondary, and then they're not giving him any help. So I mean, it's kind of an interesting scenario because the offense for the Bucks has been just outstanding all year. I mean, Liam, to me, like you just fire Bowles, make Liam Cohen the head coach, and find somebody else and just run that.
Liam Cohen's going to interview for head coaching positions.
Oh, there's no doubt about
guarantee.
it. 0% chance that he doesn't he's going to get an interview somewhere. And I hope it's with us, honestly, because like if you just watch his offense, and this kind of goes into the Bucky Irving for Scavelli's team. I mean, just the screen game, the play design is so exciting and fresh and unique. And I haven't seen a Bucks offense ever look like this as far as I can remember. I mean, it's just so exciting and new and fresh feeling. And I really don't want to lose that. So, and I'm sure nobody else wants to.
I mean, in Dustin's words, to turn just a guy tight end, Cade Otton, into this just machine is just amazing.
Dude, I mean, we'll get to Cade Otton, but man, he's been awesome. Let's go through a couple of these other ones here. So obviously Baker Mayfield was part of that, huge trade at the beginning of the season, the hot tub time machine, if you will. That was obviously he's become a starter here. Sean, is there any other starters you want to mention here? Or do we want to go further down the list?
I mean, Bucky Irving, what a grab for Scavelli. Like with a team that doesn't have a lot of resources, when you don't have a lot of resources and you hit on the ones that you have, it's huge. It's just absolutely huge.
I mean, this is like we talked about all. I mean, with pick 402 to get a starting player, or potential, at least a flex player, which is what this team absolutely needed to get a starting level player. Huge, like you said. I mean, it's just massive. I mean, look at his kicker. I mean, it's 0.14 WAR. I mean, Sean,
the guy is not even at practice every week now. He's just out there serving on jury duty,
just chilling,
and just shows up on Sunday and kicks the piss out of the ball. It's amazing.
He loves it.
Honestly, amazing.
I'm not going to try to discuss the bench pieces on each of these teams, but I do like looking at the roster cloggers for some reason. It just kind of is exciting to me.
It's just all defenses.
So we got a couple of defenses, but definitely a few down here that might not be on a team.
They picked up Bobby Trees.
I didn't even know Bobby Trees was on this team.
Wow, I think you just picked him up like today or yesterday.
So who's the lowest WAR? Luke McCaffrey's the lowest WAR.
That's tough. That's not
fair. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
But like Mike Williams, he hasn't done big. But he's looking up now. Aaron Rodgers is crazy. Yeah, that is a big roster clog.
He is cooked.
I kind of forgot he was on this team, I'll be honest with you. All right, so let's go to our next team. We'll try to go in the statistics or the standings order. So we'll go to Adam's team or Tibbs. Let's see. What's his name in here? Yeah, there it is. I should probably type in his whole thing so we don't screw this up because it'll show me like Devontae Adams and shit. All right, here we go. So no league winner tier here for actually before we do this, I want to see just like who the league winner ones were. So it's literally just both Scavelli's running backs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think there's a ton. There's not even a ton of elite players.
No. So, but I like that though, because if everybody's elite, then nobody is, right? So
sure.
All right. So starting here at the top, obviously like Jahmyr Gibbs, man, what a season he's had so far. I mean, that whole running game is just electric. I mean, it's just
that team is nuts. How good they are.
They have so much talent on offense and the offensive line. I really, other than like a couple of defensive pieces, I can't think of one thing that I'd be like, oh yeah, they just need to upgrade this. Like it's just so solid.
I don't spend a lot of time listening to like first takey type shows. So I don't know if like this is a discussion or not, but like, have you heard Jared Goff in like the discussion for MVP this year?
I have not at all.
That's crazy to me because he is. I mean,
he's distributing the ball great.
I don't think he's like an elite quarterback, but like he is. It doesn't matter. Like when you're putting up the numbers he has more touchdown passes than he does incompletions over like the last.
That's actually insane.
6 weeks.
That's the anti-Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
he can't even complete a pass.
That team is a shit show. Oh my god,
it is a shit show. That's a really exciting one to talk about.
We could go off on a quick tangent here. Like if you watch the tape on Anthony Richardson, like I don't see why he was benched. Like he's inaccurate.
He's not good.
Like, he's gotten so many drops and so many like wide receivers just running incorrect. Dude,
Michael Pittman stinks. He actually
not good.
stinks. Like I don't know what happened, but he literally can't get open.
He does have a back injury he's playing
Yes,
through. I don't know why he's playing through it. They've got receivers. Like,
yeah, it's not like they don't have like enough depth. Like they have guys they could try out. Like obviously like, at the bottom of the roster, even like an Ashton Dulin is like a serviceable, slot guy or something. I mean,
Ashton Dulin's getting more snaps than AD Mitchell is right now.
To me, I don't know why Alec Pierce is on the field. I understand he's fast and like can do that field stretchy role, but they have other guys that can do that. Like that's not. Yeah. He literally is so one dimensional. I just don't understand why they can't just give other people targets on that team. They have other guys, but yeah, they're a weird team because like it's like they have some talent there, and it just does not ever look good. It hasn't looked good one time this year. I mean, the drops are terrible.
Yeah. I don't know. Their offensive line has been struggling a little bit the last few weeks too. I think they're down like a guard or something the last 3 or 4 weeks, and their offensive line plays like dropped.
Well, it's concerning because Flacco can't move. Like he's a
right. You know, I mean, if you had like a mobile quarterback that was good at avoiding sacks.
I mean, I also thought the timing of the benching was just like kind of. I mean, it's not. I really don't think it was I think it was literally took the play off and you can't start the guy after that.
Yeah, I mean, well, when your center comes out and like basically calls you soft and you don't do that,
it's just not a good look. Like
I would understand maybe like benching him for the week, but like going with Flacco, like just saying outright though, yeah, we're gonna go with Flacco the rest of the year now.
Like the rest of, did they say rest of the year? Yeah. See that's questionable. Because like that, like you don't even leave the door open for him to come back.
I find it really hard to believe that that's Steichen's decision based off of the quarterbacks that he's coached.
Sounds like an Irsay thing. Yeah. Irsay is the guy. I mean, he's one of those dummies. So like he'll just be like, "Oh, let's do some crazy reaction here and try to figure something out quick." Because they're not out of the hunt. They're right there. I mean, like they really got to figure something out. So anyway, good tangent on the Colt. Let's go to so getting back to Gibbs, RB4 on the year. Just an outstanding season.
He's honestly kind of surprising when you think about it, just because like
he's got a bye week.
It's a bit of a quiet start for Gibbs, and then
kind of.
Like, I think a lot of the praise has gotten heaped on, and justifiably so, because Montgomery's great too. But you just feel like more of the love has kind of gone to David Montgomery this season, just as like a talking point, as opposed to just like the raw numbers and
right. And he also got paid too, so he got his extension. So he's kind of just been in the news more. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, like I haven't heard a whole lot about Gibbs, like really, like at all. And in terms of just like people, talking about him on radio shows and podcasts and on TV and not. But like, I mean, look at last week, for example, or last couple of weeks against Tennessee, he had 40% of the snaps and had a 20-point game. I mean, and then the week after here, last week against Green Bay, 39% of the snaps, a 13.6 performance game. So like, he hasn't went once. His only game above 60% snaps was the Bucs game, and he's been just absolutely lights out. I mean, he's averaging 6.3 yards per carry. Sean, he's playing great ball, and justifiably, he is in the elite category here for the WAR,
and still has upside.
And then 16 points per game is crazy. I mean, that's great.
I mean, if Montgomery misses any time or vice versa,
my God,
either of those guys immediately go into that category with Barkley. In my opinion, I think
it's fair. I mean, there's no reason to believe anything otherwise. Like, it's not like he's not. I mean, he's getting 11 to 12 touches a game, and he's putting just crazy numbers. So, anywho, 16 points per game, just outstanding for your RB1 there. And basically all of Tibbs's, more of this high end talent are all running backs. So I mean, this is just an outstanding running back room too. I mean, Josh Jacobs, quietly having a very solid season. He hasn't really like had that one game, I don't think, where he's like blown up.
He started the year like he couldn't buy a touchdown. I think it took him until like week 4 or 5 to get in the end zone, I want to say. And since then, he's been running pretty well. Like I think he's gotten a good amount of touchdown equity. And
he's turned it on a little bit. Yeah, week 5, he had his first touchdown, and then he had one in week 7 and 2 in week 8. So he's definitely picked it up in terms of like overall touchdown percentage. But then like he had a 25-point game against Jacksonville, but a lot of 15s, 10s. As you can see, his average here is 12.5 a game. So I mean, just rock solid. He's the RB10 overall running back this year.
just based off of like the season that these three running backs here are having, they're very much like almost like the Spider-Man meme as far as like how the season feels like it's going.
Yeah,
for them,
very true. Very, very true.
They've all had like good to great games, but they've all had like a couple of stinkers as well. That's kind of probably pulling that war down into the starter level as opposed to elite.
I think the only one that hasn't had the stinker is Gibbs. I mean, Gibbs hasn't really had any games that are under 9. Yeah. But like you said, like with Connor, he's had a couple of real stinkers, and he's still RB11. So I mean, you have RB4, RB10, RB11, and then Breece Hall. Honestly, I'm not sure what he is. Let's see. So he's RB14. So like he's got 4 of the top 15 backs on one squad, and then Bigsby has kind of turned it on, but maybe not so much anymore with ETN back. But it's just a really, really strong running back room. And this is, I mean, Sean, since I can't even talk about playoffs at this point, but for you, like out of Scavelli and Tibbs, like who would you be more scared to play, I guess, if you had to go up against one?
It's a good question. There are definitive strengths and weaknesses on both the rosters. Obviously, for Tibbs, just running pretty unlucky with the quarterback position is definitely hurting. But Scavelli having the bad luck with the receivers, it makes it tough. With the scoring format for quarterbacks in our league, like it can be such an advantage and disadvantage to not have the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Even still, I think I would rather.
Well, Scavelli is like depth. Like, who knows what his depth might look like in the playoffs, right?
Yeah,
like that's kind of where I'm leaning.
I think they're very close. But like Henry and Barkley are so scary. I think I would lean Tibbs, but honestly, they're both great teams. It's right there.
Yeah, I don't want to play either. We'll put it that way. I mean, they're very strong teams. We won't spend too much time here. We're going to keep moving along, but I want to see if I can find any fun roster cloggers at the bottom.
Lazard starter. What the hell?
Averaging 10.3 points per game, apparently.
Damn.
Who knew? Oh, I want to look at this numbers now. Hold on. I haven't paid much attention to them, I'll be honest with you.
Some crazy stuff going on this team.
I don't even see Allen Lazard on this list.
Getting bumped up to starter based off of one game, probably.
Is Allen Lazard even on Tibbs' team right now?
He's on IR.
Oh, that'll do it, yeah.
He just got.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 20-point game week 1. He had a 10-point game week 3. And he actually was playing pretty good ball. He was playing pretty good ball. He's like wide receiver 19 on the year.
All of his highlights are always the balls that he drops, but like he does catch a decent amount of them too. It's just.
I mean, he's always been a solid player. Like he's never been a guy that's been like, oh, this guy's ass and just Aaron Rodgers. He
catches the negative people around Rodgers. I think that's just his.
Yeah, he's just part of that grouping.
That's the cost of doing business when
the Randall Cobbs of the world, right? Like he's in the group. But he's had a pretty good year so far, man. I don't know if he's going to come back anytime soon, but like he's definitely not going to be much of a focal point anymore with Devontae there. All right, let's keep going down. Any other interesting ones here?
I mean, it's the lowlights currently that have kind of.
Mark Andrews a bench piece.
I mean, DJ Moore bench piece.
Yeah, it's tough.
Jalen Waddle
7 points a game.
Jalen Waddle's got to be a tough pill to swallow right now.
That is a tough one. That's a great point. Really good point on that one. Yeah, Waddle is just, man, who knows?
It's who's screwed him? It's Devon Achane.
I mean, Achane is doing a lot of that kind of dirty work.
It's first read Tyreek, second read get to your check down so that you don't get hit.
So you don't die. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's true though. I mean, I just don't know if you're right. Like if maybe the offense just isn't designed for much more than a one read. Like I haven't spent a whole lot of time. Like has there been any Tua QB schools by chance? Do you remember from this year? I would love to just watch one just to see what the offense kind of like actually looks like from an all 22 perspective.
Not recently. Maybe there will be one this week. I was actually listening to a podcast that JT was on, and he specifically talked about like Tua and like not really like wanting to watch because of like the issues that he's had.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know if he's even going to do one, but
that's fair. I mean, I get it. It's just I would love to know, like you said, like is the offense more than just Tyreek Hill and Devon Achane check down? Like, I mean, is it more? It doesn't feel like that.
Watch the game. I mean,
And if the check down isn't going to Achane, it's probably going to Jonnu Smith. That's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's an elite tight end, Eric. I don't know why.
That's what I've been told, at least. That's what my sources are telling me. So.
I mean, I tried to tell the league before last season started that was the case, but
this is hurting my eyes, by the way. Rashad Bateman has higher points per game than Mark Andrews this year. It just blows my mind, dude.
Yeah, it's tough.
That is crazy. All right, let's see. Anybody else interested? Oh, you got Jonathan Mingo. That's an interesting storyline.
Big dynasty bump right there going to America's team.
Is that might be one of the worst trades I can think of in recent memory. Like from a low-level shitty draft picks. There's no reason to pay him a 4th-rounder pick.
That's going to be pick like one. What do you think? Like 115?
Probably. That's terrible nuts. Trade.
That's nuts.
They traded more for him than the Chiefs traded for DeAndre Hopkins.
Wasn't like Tank Dell a 5th-round pick in the NFL draft?
Like a 4 or 5, I think, or something like that. I mean, well, there's good players that come out. Like Stephon Diggs was a 5th-round pick. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's good players that come out of that.
Tyrone Tracy was a 5th-round pick. I mean, you know what they can use? They could use Tyrone Tracy.
But here's the thing, Sean. Of course they could. But like, here's the thing: it's so stupid that, and I just can't understand. And I don't think I'm meant to understand because it's Jerry. This team, what's the biggest issue with the Cowboys? Like they're very top heavy and they don't have much depth. They just don't have much depth. How do you get depth? Through like late round draft picks. Who are they trading the depth for? Fucking a 4th for Trey Lance, a 4th for Jonathan Mingo.
Hey,
these are not
that's
good
their
players.
Backup quarterback now you're speaking about.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like what they're using these picks that could be used for depth players at the very least, and they're getting players that we already know stink. Like the other team, there's a reason they traded them away is because they stink. So I just don't understand what the Cowboys are doing. And like, this is his big splash. Like, I'm not even so sure. Is Jonathan Mingo even better than Jalen Tolbert? No. I'll take Jalen Tolbert right now. It's crazy. Look at him. He's higher on this list. Jalen Tolbert, look at him. I mean, it's crazy. Anywho, that's my Cowboy rant for the month. I'll save my. I'm sure there's more. Who's the lowest one on the list here? Jameis is a waiver. He's not even a roster clogger, but they love Anthony Richardson down here in Clogger Fest. That's crazy. Tough. That is tough. All right, we're gonna move on to our next team in the list.
That was me.
I think it's gonna be you. I'm gonna come back up here for a second. I want to get this back to the playoff calculator. And then current record. Actually, you're technically ahead, I guess.
I'm still in third.
What does it say point wise? I don't even know. Is it you third?
Yeah, it's I think it's Tibbs, then Schiavelli, then me right now.
All right.
JJ.
All right, let's see. So we got 3 elite players. All 3. Man, what a running back year this has been, honestly, for the top teams. I mean, this is kind of interesting discussion too, because like for so many years, it felt like for the last maybe 5 or so years, the stock on just in terms of redraft ADP and whatnot, like the receivers kind of came up quite a bit. You know, back when we first started the league, it was like all about running backs in the first round, and if you didn't have a running back in the first round, you're an idiot, kind of a thing. And it's totally flipped. And then now it seems like it's kind of like going back a little bit, where like if you drafted running backs in the first round this year, like you're probably doing pretty well. So to see, I think we had 4 elite or league winners on Schiavelli's team. We had 4 on Adam's team, and then 3 on your team. So I mean, we just got tons of great running backs this year. Sean, yours in particular. Obviously, let's start with Kyren Williams because he is a absolute touchdown machine. And it just doesn't seem like it's going to ever slow down, Sean. I just don't understand.
It slowed down this week. It was his first game in like 10 or 11 games without a touchdown. So
it was kind of tough sledding, though. I mean, I think he was like, he had a tough day on the ground. I think it was 22 carries for 69 yards, 3.1 a carry. So it was kind of just like not a great game for him overall. They just stacked the box on him.
Yeah. I mean, the yards per carry never going to be great with Kyren because he doesn't get explosives, but he always gets like the 4 to 5 yards when you need it, and that's why McVay plays him.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's having a tough year yards per carry wise. He's only 3.7 this year. But then again, as we mentioned on previous podcasts, this offensive line is awful. I mean, they're not good.
It's never been whole this year either.
They've been playing like third stringers.
Yeah, you come into the year with a plan, and then the plan goes to shit in the preseason.
Yeah, it's just
it's honestly amazing that they're in a competitive like situation right now.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that this last game was such a boost for them. Actually, it wasn't this last game; it was the Minnesota game, where they kind of pulled that one out of their ass, and then now it's like you get Cooper back, you get Puka back. Like things are starting to look up again as far as the offense is concerned. So, I mean, yeah, they're actually like what was it, the first 6 weeks? It was just miserable to watch the Rams play offense, but now it's like exciting again. So.
I really want to watch them with like a little bit of a lead because that defensive line is kind of nice.
They got talent, dude. They got talent.
They haven't been playing with a lead, so their pass rush hasn't been able to been allowed to do anything really.
No, I mean every time they seem to be, it seems like a lot. We see a lot of run defense, which is not fun to watch really, but from a defensive standpoint. But they have guys. I mean, like Fisk has been solid. Verse, I guess, has looked pretty good too.
I mean, Jared Verse is currently, I think, the favorite for defensive rookie of the year. I think.
How many sacks does he have now? Yeah, I mean, it might be an off the rails question, maybe for the off the rails podcast whenever that gets started. But I know he's been one of the better ones. There's been a few. It's been a kind of a down year for pass rushers this year, like in terms of rookie production. So.
Yeah, well, Hutchinson was on his way, and then the injury.
Well, I meant like more like rookies, but yeah, Hutchinson was. Yeah. I mean, Hutchinson still is like third in the league in sacks and hasn't played in like 4 weeks. He's crazy. His numbers were insane. Anywho, so yes, we got Kyren Williams, Alvin Kamara. Sean, what do you think of the extension for Kamara? That was kind of interesting news.
I think it's just a money laundering scheme at this point in New Orleans.
Do you know about the mattress firm money laundering scheme? The conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
I think Alvin Kamara is the mattress firm of this league. I think he is the guy. They're just going to keep pushing them down the road. They're going to keep stuffing it in the mattresses, and then they're just going to keep playing him. I mean,
they're making him work hard for his money, man. He had
they are absolutely running
31 touches, I think, against Carolina. He was great in that game.
I love it when teams run their players to the ground. There's something funny about it. Like there's like a deeper like humor about it, where it's just like, okay, we know that we're paying you this much. You're gonna just play the damn game and you're gonna like it. It's just funny to me. So he is one of those guys. I mean, he's had multiple games over 25 carries.
Kamara was a real shithead a couple years ago, like the offseason incident and stuff like that. But since then, he's really grown on me. Like in the offseason, they asked him if he was going to hold out if he didn't get a contract. He's like, fuck that. I like my money. I'm going to play.
I'm playing that game. I mean, what's interesting is like he had so many great years. Obviously, his first 5 years in the league, he had 4 top 10 finishes. Then he had the 2 seasons, with all the controversy and whatnot, RB19, RB24. And then this year he's back to RB3. And he's almost at the carry number. So he's had 150 carries so far this season. Last season, he had 180 for the season. So, I mean, he's almost there. And he probably will get there probably next 2 games, which is crazy. So, I mean, they are truly using him.
He honestly kind of falls in that Kyren Williams camp of like, what if? Because they lost 2 of their best offensive linemen after the first couple weeks of the season. And you have like a revolving door of quarterbacks. You have no receivers that are healthy on this team. Like realistically, like the Saints really just got destroyed by injuries after the first couple weeks of the year.
They got annihilated.
I think it's just like a excuse for like Michael Thomas to shit on Derek Carr kind of thing of like, let's blame Derek Carr for all the problems.
We all know how we feel about Michael Thomas.
Like Clint Kubiak's done a good job considering like what they've had to play with. So I don't know. It's tough. I think it's a kind of a what if, because even though he's RB3, like it could be better.
It could be, and it's even crazy. Like he only has 1 receiving touchdown so far this year. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing is he's on pace for by far the most targets of his career this season. He's got 63 targets right now. His career high is 107, and there's still 7 games left to play, 6-7 games left to play. He's gonna get it.
I mean, and Shaheed is done for the year, and who knows what's going on with Chris Olave? I would not.
I don't want to hear his name the rest of the season. I hope he sits the whole year out. Honestly, like there's no reason for him to play.
You're going with. I mean, Bub Means I think is on the IR now too. So you're going with.
It's just Mason Tipton.
Mason Tipton, MVS, I think is on this team now, and Cedric Wilson.
Should have kept A.T. Perry. Like, at least he was an option. Like it's just so bad. Yeah. They are struggling. Yeah, it says it's technically on this list. They don't even. It's Jermaine Jackson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton. That is bad.
Like, the if Olave doesn't play the rest of the year, like it's going to be.
But why would you play him? Like there's no reason.
I don't know. I think they should probably just enter the Travis Hunter sweepstakes at this point.
It'd be a great fit for them as a team. I mean,
yeah,
they just got rid of Lattimore.
They finally made a trade and got draft capital back for
which
once.
I've never seen that in my life.
I've never seen it happen in Orleans. Yeah,
it's crazy. All right, let's keep rolling here. So, any other? I mean, well, we should mention James Cook.
He's been great. It makes me a little nervous because Ray Davis has also been amazing.
Yeah, he's been playing great ball.
I'm a little worried about that backfield share now, if I'm being honest.
If we're looking at like just the course of the season, his snap totals have been rock solid.
Cook has done nothing to lose work. It's just Ray Davis has been great.
But the difference this year for Cook is the touchdowns. He's got 7 touchdowns on the ground. The previous 2 seasons, he's had 4 combined. So, I mean, he's almost doubled his overall touchdown numbers for his entire career, which is great.
I think that's a product of just them not using Josh Allen as much in the goal line or on the goal line. I think he had like a wrist injury or something earlier in the year. I'm sure that had something to do with it as well.
And Diggs didn't get a lot of touchdowns back in the day too, so like they kind of lost that. Yeah, great for you. He's RB7 on the year.
I do have a question. Like, I wonder like how the war is compiled with like quarterbacks, because like I don't understand how Lamar Jackson isn't considered an elite player.
I mean,
maybe 30 points
on like a 4-point touchdown type of deal.
Maybe like 30 points a game.
I mean, 30 is crazy. I mean, to just lock yourself into 30 a game is crazy.
He's easily been my most important player this year. I don't.
Well, I mean, it's like you said earlier, like for our league, it is so important to have one of those elite guys, especially like a runner, that you can just have that floor every single week. It's one of the reasons I haven't traded Hurts really at this point, because I mean, he's still young. He's 25, 26, and he's getting 10 touchdowns on the ground every single year. Yeah. But that's like, to have a guy like that, like an Allen, like a Lamar, like a Hurts. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple other guys, but like there's
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels now. I mean, to have those guys is a week in and week out advantage. So yeah, I feel like that really should be a much higher number. So I'm wondering if that's based on a 4-point touchdown league or something, but I'm not sure.
It's fine. We'll let him sleep on my guy.
I mean, at the very least, he should be in the elite category. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. Any other ones standing out to you here, Sean? Obviously, like I think.
I mean, it's Tyreek, and getting Tua back is obviously gonna boost him back up eventually. So
I agree.
No concerns there. Hopkins is back? Question mark.
He certainly looks back, but I will say this: there's a big asterisk because it's the Bucs secondary.
Right.
So I want to see him do it again.
Probably somewhere in between what he did and what he was in Tennessee. Did you see his touchdown celebration, by the way? The Remember the Titans celebration?
It was very nice. I did enjoy that quite a bit.
That was great. I did the DiCaprio meme where I was like, oh.
I thought that was great. And I also think, too, just like in terms of the Chiefs, like red zone offense, like he can change the way that they're playing the red zone. Like he's going to be like even Pat Mahomes.
You got to respect the outside receiver when they're on the goal line now. That's
right. They never had to do that. I think the last time they actually had a threat like on the outside was like Dwayne Bowe. Like I can't remember the last like big guy on the outside that they could just chuck it up to and like believe that somebody's going to bring it down. So like that's a scary proposition for the rest of the league. But I don't see Drake May roster clogger. Oh no,
no way.
He's clogging the toilet down there.
Not for long. That guy.
How is Samaje Perine not a fucking roster clogger? That is the most like. Could you ask for a better roster clogger?
My finger has hovered over cuts so many times.
Dude, I'm thinking about cutting him for you. I might just C1 him just so you don't have to do it. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right, let's keep rolling.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Is there another one on there?
I don't think so. I guess Taysom Hill kind of falls into that category of like, who else are they going to give the ball to the rest of the year? So he might be somebody that gets a little bit of a boost, but
look at that baby war he's got, that little baby 0.1 war. He's got some war. He's in there. All right, let's go to our next team on our list, and that's going to be the Lauderdale Lionheads. So there should be
Jared Verse has 3.5 sacks, by the way.
So, I mean, It's solid. I mean, it's good for a rookie. I'm sure. I think sacks are such a misleading stat too. Like I feel like, of course, it shows if a player's good or not, but like so much of it is pressure rate, how often they can get to the quarterback and get in their face. Like that's such a underrated stat.
Pressures and pressures to sack are the two that I usually look at.
Yeah, like QB hits, like anything like that. Like sack is cool, but like it's also a little bit of an overrated stat.
If you want to see a guy that cannot get home on a quarterback this year, just look at Josh Sweat for the Eagles and his pressure to sack ratio. It's booty.
Dude, maybe fill me in on this, and this is not really dynasty related, but just like what is the front four look like for the Eagles? Because I haven't been watching intently, but they were supposed to have like the elite of the elite defensive lines, and then it just doesn't seem like that's the case. Like what happened?
So we've completely leaned into simulated pressures at this point, so you never know which four are coming, or 3 or 5.
Okay.
So we've completely gone after the Flores model of like, where are we coming from? It's the front four. It's Carter. Milton Williams has had the second most snaps.
I like Milton Williams.
He's got the second most snaps at defensive tackle, and I want to say Ojimo has the third, and then it's Davis.
Wow, Jordan Davis really fallen off.
Yeah, it's relatively even outside of Jalen Carter, but he's definitely fourth currently.
That's pretty wild.
And then it's been a mix of Sweat, Nolan Smith, Graham.
Somehow still there.
Still selling real
still
fake doors.
Kicking real fake doors, Brandon Graham.
And then honestly, it's a lot of blitzing from the linebackers. Both the linebackers' pressure rates and stuff, they've been great on the blitz this year.
Well, like Dean is
elite as a blitzer.
Dude, he like I love them. You know how much I love them coming out.
He can't play in coverage for shit.
Yeah, the nice pick.
He did have the game-winning interception. But outside
that being said, well, I also like Zach Bond. I mean,
he's been great.
He's looked fucking nice, dude. Like I like Zach Bond too, but I always thought he was a bit of a thumper-y kind of guy. But he's been awesome everywhere.
I mean, they told him when he signed with the Eagles that he was going to be an end. He was going to be an edge.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy.
They had to move him to off-ball linebacker because they had
don't have anybody else. Yeah, like what else are you gonna do? That's pretty wild. All right, let's go here to the Lauderdale Lionheads. Sean, another 3 running backs that are just great. I mean, it truly is this league. I mean, if anything that you've gained from looking at the WAR, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of discrepancy with the quarterbacks, but this is a very running back driven top 4. So if it's any indication of how you're going to win in this league, it's going to be running back depth, and all of these teams have had it so far in this season. Starting at the top with Bijan, definitely living up to the hype this year. As opposed to the Arthur Smith Bijan that we got the last couple of years. He's RB6 on the year right now, 4.68 yards per carry, and is literally it seems like he's an absolute lock for like 12 a game at the very least. And then he's also been having some bigger games against some bad opponents here the last couple of weeks. So it's just really good touchdowns for him.
The way the fantasy community talks about Bijan Robinson, you'd think he'd be like RB 30 the first few weeks.
It's ridiculous. Like he had 3 straight weeks of 11 points or more to start the season. It's not like he's been shit. I don't get that. I mean, he had a couple of tough games against New Orleans and Tampa at 7 points. It wasn't that bad.
He got treated like the second coming. That's like when you have that much hype. Like
he was literally the most hyped running back I can remember since Barkley.
Look at Marvin Harrison Jr.
Same thing, yeah.
Absolutely destroyed this year, and he's been fine.
He's a rookie. Like he's not supposed to go for fucking 1,500 yards as a rookie. Like it's not supposed to happen.
And I don't know, like because Malik Neighbors started so hot, but he hasn't really done much outside injury withstanding. But like he hasn't really done much the last few weeks.
No, I mean
you don't hear him getting crapped on by everybody because he had such a hot start.
It's funny because like I still have that problem too sometimes where I'll think about a player and be like, oh, like he's playing good this season, but then it was literally just like the first 2 weeks of the year. Like it's just not really indicative. But it's funny how your brain like kind of like prints that in for a little while. But I mean, yeah, like over the last 4 weeks, Bijan is I don't know what he's been, but there's no way he's less than RB like 4 or 5. Like he's been unbelievable for the last few weeks, and he's he's doing it efficiently. And then the last couple of weeks, he's really turned on the receiving piece of the game. He's had 7 catches in both of those games. So it's looking up for Bijan and less and less good for Tyler Algier, who's probably lower on this list here as a bench piece. But there was a point where you could start both of them if you wanted to, as a flex player maybe, but not so much anymore. He's kind of more of a touchdown guy. Any other ones here? Let's talk about. I mean, we did talk a little bit about Montgomery, but man, he has just been awesome this season. He's kind of had a couple of duds over the last couple of weeks. I'll say he had a 5-point game in week 7 against Minnesota, and week 9 he had a 9-point game. But those are good defenses, so it's not like totally unexpected. But just in terms of for a team that truly splits their backs 50-50, I mean, there's no bigger 50-50 split than the Lions. To have RB12 and RB4 on your team is crazy and amazing. So, I mean, for Vince's squad, looking at some of the other depth on this team, with Pacheco going down, basically these top 3 running backs, I would argue you could put Taylor in the elite category. It's really just because he's had some injuries and hasn't played. Sure. But averaging 13 points a game at the minimum for those 3 players is just a crazy good floor for this team.
Yep. I agree. That's
absolutely.
I mean, that's exactly what you want. I mean, that's exactly how we kind of build this team coming into the year too. Like, he was going to get a great floor from what we thought was going to be the top 4, obviously Pacheco being out, but with these 3 guys, like, what you're going to get at a minimum every week. And it's just about who else is going to do what else every week.
And I think, like, when we're looking at the playoff picture, I think it's important to kind of look. So, I think it's you guys in the top 4 are the real strong contenders. And I'm kind of looking around. It's like, okay, what team has the biggest potential for like that spike week? Like, who is the team? Like, of course, you guys all have like these good, really such strong running backs that are putting up 15 points, 14 points a game. But like, outside of those elite players, which ones are going to be the ones that spike potentially in the playoffs, like for those big games? And like right now, when I think about that, I'm still coming back to Scavelli's team, because even those top 2 guys, yes, they're getting the floors of those 15 a week, but they're also putting up like some 30s and shit. So like, I mean, those are the ones that are the most scary. But now I'm kind of like coming back to Vince's team, and yes, he has these great floor of running backs, but now you're throwing in Terry McLaurin and Zay Flowers into this mix, who are having these huge spike weeks as well. This is a scary team. Like, this is not a team that I don't want to play this team either, because I feel like with Trey McBride, even Cooper Kupp coming back now, absolutely has potential for a 25-point week. Like, there's absolutely a path to having McLaurin, Flowers, and Kupp all having 20-point weeks at the same time. So, I mean, I feel really good about this team currently. And then if he can get Pacheco back, maybe this season, for maybe the playoff run. I mean, this team is deep. It has really strong players at almost every position. I guess the only position that's kind of I'm not even seeing them on here, but like his quarterbacks. Let's see. We got Kyler, Kirk. So I mean, definitely not bad quarterbacks, but they're not like what we were talking about earlier in that top 5 or whatever.
Kirk and Kyler have been pretty trick or treat this year. Like, you're either getting a monster or you're getting not much. Like, I think Kyler had like 5 points in our matchup this week.
Kyler's.
I'm sure if he's looking back at that matchup, he's like, yeah, that's where I lost it.
Which is tough, because like the rest of this team is just so strong. You would hope that Kyler would kind of get back to that floor that it seemed like he used to have, that floor where it was like, okay, you're gonna get 15.
It's the rushing. He just doesn't he's just not running. Which is
I need to click on. I'm going to look at his running numbers real quick here, because I do know that like in years past, the running was a big piece of his game.
There's going to be an outlier because he had a 50-yard touchdown run like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but outside of that, it really hasn't been.
Well, what's interesting is he's been more efficient in the times that he has run, but if you go back to his first 3 seasons when he was a top 10 quarterback, we're talking about 11 touchdowns on the ground in 2020. He had 5, 4 in the other 2 years, but he also had 800 yards one of those years. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that far off of his other numbers, but
so I'm just talking recently. So the last 4 weeks, 14 yards, 64. That was the game with the 50-yard touchdown run. 19 and 6. Obviously, you count the 50-yard touchdown run. It's not like we don't count it, but
of course, yeah.
It's just a weird trend considering he was on pace for. It looked like he was on pace for like 50 yards rushing a game before then.
Yeah, the first 3 weeks were 57, 59, 45. So it's like he was at least getting you that 5-point floor at the running back position or at the quarterback position.
I don't think it's something I'm panicking about, but it's definitely something I would be like looking at, keeping an eye on, because it just seems like he's been trending down as far as like wanting to be a runner.
Do you think that, like, I mean, we kind of haven't really talked too much about trades or trade deadlines, but is this something, if you're Vince, do you like try to actively try to upgrade with like a better quarterback, or do you kind of just ride the wave? I mean, I feel like there is, I mean, like you said, like has been a couple of spike weeks where he's had the 35 points, 27 points, 26 points, but there's also been like a lot of those 11s, 12s, 4. So I don't know. Like if you're a true contender in this league, I think it's kind of the same problem that, well, not I don't want to call it the same problem that Tibbs has, but there's just not the elite quarterback play right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just good enough to where I would be telling myself, yeah, I can pick the right guy every week and I'll be good. I think that's where I would be at if I was looking at the roster.
I mean, I think if honestly, like if we're talking about playoffs specifically, which we are, Kirk Cousins' playoff schedule looks beautiful. So
yeah, Atlanta's got a cakewalk of a schedule the rest of the year.
So I mean, I feel like the only challenge I can even see is the Minnesota game in Week 14. But I mean, if you're talking about playoff,
that's a revenge game, sir.
That's a great point. That's a very good point. So I mean, like I wouldn't feel bad at all about starting Kirk Cousins in the playoffs against like Las Vegas, New York.
Like quarterbacks that they've got by in Minnesota are the vets that aren't afraid to stand in the pocket and deliver.
All right. Well,
I will say that.
So maybe it's not as scary as it looks on paper. Because like just like we said, neither of these guys are in the elite category right now. But Kirk Cousins has had some crazy blow up weeks, and in the last 2 weeks he's had 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's trending in the right direction. And I do think he's gonna have a Week 12 bye, which is good right before the playoffs as well, so he can get healthy and rested. So I think he'll be fine. Kind of just wanted to talk about that in particular, just because this team is a true contender, and I'm just like playing devil's advocate.
It definitely stands out when you look and you have to really scroll to get to the quarterback position. But like I said, I think if I were looking at that as my roster, I'd be like, yeah, I can roll with this.
Yeah, let's just roll.
Even if I have to throw Flacco in every once in a while as a good matchup, like I think we can win with that. So
I don't think I could start Flacco over either of those guys, even in a good matchup. You just gotta kind of hope that they hit the spike week.
It's tough, man. I mean, like it changes. It's so dramatically different week to week. Like judging a quarterback based off of their game against the Vikings this year is kind of hard to do. So
the Vikings are
look so bad, good. But Flacco's also looked really good this year for the Colts. So I mean, that's why
he's had his moments for sure. Any other ones here to talk about? Trey McBride is a bench piece. Is stupid.
When will Trey McBride score a receiving touchdown this year?
So that's why he's considered a bench piece, probably, because he's just not scoring touchdowns. But
he's got a fumble recovery touchdown and a rushing touchdown this year.
But boys, his yardage numbers have been great. He's got 481 yards already, and he's RB6 tight end 6 without a touchdown, which is pretty amazing. So good for him. But like, I would like to see him, take that next step if this team kind of really wants to get over the hump for that championship. So that'd be nice if we can get that boost. All right, let's go down to the cloggers. Any fun ones here? Kirk Cousins roster clogger seems ridiculous. Something's wrong with the quarterbacks in here. I'm gonna have to do some research on that. Yeah, like Kyler Murray and him as roster cloggers is kind of ridiculous. AJ Barner, everybody loves AJ Barner. Julius Chestnut, I love him.
Ooh.
I think Bryce Young is a waiver player. Holy shit.
Jermaine Burton.
Yeah, that's a fun discussion. We had a field day with that in the chat. All right,
can you guys? I think I missed that entire story. What happened with Jermaine Burton? I saw the meme.
So to my knowledge, it was the Saturday before the game or something like that. and he was at the casino.
Oh, he pulled a Michael Jordan? Oh no.
Yeah, like he was at the casino by himself, and somebody took a picture of him, and then the next day he came in like, or maybe it's the same. I don't even know, but like he came in pajamas, and he just didn't seem to give a shit. And it's like the whole thing is just so strange because he's not. He doesn't have any leg to stand. Like he is just. Everybody already knows he's a dope, and it's like this is just like how dumb are you kind of a thing. Like he's so much talent too. It's just so sad. Maybe he'll figure it out. I'm probably not, but he seems like a Steelers player at heart. All right, let's go to our next team on the list. We're going to go to the Baton Rouge Bombers, who are currently sitting at 5-4. I believe he's on a little bit of a losing streak. Is that right, Sean?
That's a good question. I
think. Let me look here. Let's go back to the league page. I have to go on my phone because this desktop app is still terrible after all these. He's on a 2-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's take a look at these last 2 games for him. He's played. He had the long gamers this week, so that's a fun one. Last week he took the L to the Plague. That's a tough one to lose in that tight battle, and then he lost to the Lionheads the week before. So it's been a tough sled there for the last couple of weeks, but it's not really getting easier. He's playing you this week. So interesting. He could end up here at 5-5 if things don't work out. And I think he's also got some bye week trouble, doesn't he? Maybe or not bye week.
I'm catching him on a pretty good week right now. I will say.
Like Deontay Johnson's in the starting lineup as of right now. That's not ideal. Gabe Davis is in the starting lineup. That's also not ideal.
Yeah,
some interesting choices.
He's got his Seahawks. He's got Jordan Love on a bye week.
Kenny Walker on a bye.
Jaden Reed on a bye.
Yeah, it's a tough week. He's projected for 105 right now. It's not ideal. But anywho.
Godwin on IR still. So.
But yeah, this is a team that's in the thick of the race. As we mentioned earlier, his playoff percentages are still pretty good. Still at 79%. And his projected record at 7-7, which kind of feels right for this team. I think, with some of the early season returns that he got with Jaden Reed and whatnot really helped the cause. But I mean, this is still on paper a very strong team. It's just that ETN has kind of just dropped a little here from a lottle, if you will. But of course, Joe Mixon has kind of done the other way. So it's been a little bit of like, holy shit, they're just changing of the guard, if you will.
Just market correcting each other there on the trade.
Exactly. But yeah, so anywho, let's get into the team here. So Joe Mixon averaging 19 points per game in the game he's played. Obviously, he was hurt for a couple of weeks there, but just an absolute stud at 0.8 WAR per game, which is crazy. Definitely. I wonder, actually, I'm going to back out of this for 1 second. I want to see where he ranks overall. So he's number 5 in WAR. For this site, so that's pretty amazing. For preseason, I don't think anybody would have put him in this category. I think they would have put him in the middle of that, maybe RB15 range or something like that. But Mixon has been absolutely outstanding this year for the Bombers. All right, coming back into it. So yeah, let's. I actually want to look at Mixon's overall numbers because I know there was a bunch of or a couple of missed weeks with the injury, but I wanted to see what that looked like. Yeah, he has 4 weeks over 20 points this season, and he's scored a touchdown in every single game except for one. So he's been just absolutely outstanding. He's averaging 4.83 yards per carry, which is the second best of his entire career. So he's just really having an outstanding season. He's RB8, and he's missed 3 weeks. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Not much more to say there, really. Chris Godwin going down. Big loss. Obviously, he was having a tremendous season. He was wide receiver 1, I think, at that point of the season before he got hurt. So that's a big loss. But
back to work, John.
Yeah, back to work. Yeah,
that's so sad.
That was sad, dude. Because anybody that follows the Bucs knows, like, he is the most he's the anti-Jermaine Burton. Like, he's just like, I'm just gonna show up and do my job and go home. Like, that's exactly what Chris Godwin's all about. He's like the ultimate teammate. So yeah, to see that happen was really sad. But in terms of the Bombers setup here at receiver, obviously he's got quite a number of names here, but there's been some really nice surprises in terms of like overall value this season. So like Jaden Reed being one of them. I think a lot of folks had him kind of in that that hodgepodge of Green Bay receivers in that wide receiver 20 to 30 something range. And he's looked excellent every time he touches the ball. It's just a matter of if it's going to be his week kind of a thing. But combining him with Marvin Harrison, who's been very solid, maybe not so much as the expectations were, but he's been solid to my eyes. I mean, he's just kind of learning the game. He just looks a little bit slower than I thought he was going to look, honestly, though. That's kind of the only gripe I really have with him.
His usage in that offense was not ideal to start the year.
No.
The routes that he was running were not like, they're so high, like they're so low usage, low like success rate routes. Like,
it was like stuff that's like, oh, we're gonna run like a 8-yard hitch and create no separation from the route itself, and just like hopefully his big body's like good enough, and like that's okay, but like he's so much more versatile than that, and he's such a good route runner. You would hope he'd do more.
I don't think he started running slants until like the last like 2 weeks. I'm like,
no, he's like a perfect slant receiver too. Yeah, he's a huge body. I mean, I have no problems with the way he's performed this season. I feel like, yeah, the first couple of weeks were kind of like rough or whatever to look at, but like he's a rookie. You got to figure that out. And everybody seems to forget another guy on this list here too. Like Ja'Marr Chase looked like crap for his like first few preseason games, and like even a couple of games into the season, his rookie year, he couldn't catch a ball for really anything at that point. And he's
the laces, Eric.
That's what I've been told, at least. That's the laces' fault. So, speaking of Ja'Marr Chase, he's been awesome. Nothing to really report there. He's wide receiver 1, but
fun to look at his splits when he gets to play with T. Higgins and when he doesn't get to play with T. Higgins.
It's pretty amazing.
Have you seen like what his
well, I mean, I'm looking at it kind of like right now as far as like just the week in, week out production.
His 17 game pace with T. Higgins on the field is 1,700 yards, and when T. Higgins doesn't play, it's like 800 or 900 yards.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't take into like matchups in that week and stuff like that. So it's definitely all like can be skewed, but it's a crazy difference for even regardless.
Yeah, and it's amazing. He's wide receiver 1, and he's had like 3 weeks that are kind of duddy. His blow-up games are just amazing. So, for this squad, with 3, it sucks that Godwin went down because they could have had 4 just excellent, top 20 receivers on this squad, which really kind of needs it because the running back position isn't quite that strong on this team other than Mixon and Walker at this point.
You made the comment when we were talking about Vince's team as far as like teams, like if they hit on the right week as far as like spike weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I would think I would find Justin's team a bit scarier than Vince's as far as if we're talking about spike weeks go. I think Vince has got a more consistent team. But
yeah, like a Terry,
a Chase, even Marvin Harrison has had spike weeks. Kenneth Walker is a huge spike week kind of guy. His quarterbacks too.
Burrow, you get the Burrow 5 touchdown week.
Love Tua can even have one of those games where he's got like 400 yards and a couple touchdowns. Pitts, like every guy you look at on this roster, you're like boom bust, boom bust, boom bust, boom bust. Like when they all hit at the same time, like he's had a couple weeks this year where his team has put up, I think, 150 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm pretty sure he's like his averages have been kind of up and down, but like the big weeks are big. And like you said, like if he's a team you play in the playoffs, like for example, like if he's going to end up as the 5th seed or the 6th seed,
the exact reason why
scary 5 and 6.
I want a bye week. Like
yeah,
the kind of team you don't want to see as a 5 or 6 seed.
Yeah, he's going to be in the mix. I think I would be very surprised if this team didn't make the playoffs. And I think most people would agree with that. Wow, that was like the most Donald Trump thing I've ever said. I think most people would agree.
Not right now.
Maybe too soon for some of us out there. But yeah, there's I think a great potential for this team to make the playoffs and then to potentially make some noise in the playoffs. Like this actually could be a fun year if everything holds up the way it is for the Bombers. It's just we got to get back on track. I mean, obviously the 2 losses last couple of weeks are tough, but this matchup this week isn't great. The bye week situation isn't great, but if he ends up at 5-5 after this week, I wonder who he's got in 11. He's got the cheese fries. It doesn't get much easier. He gets the cheese fries next week. So, I mean, we could be at 5-6, and then finally maybe getting some relief. Not so much, really. He's got the Muskrats are frisky nowadays, so who knows? So it's 3 games. In this game, wait a second, what's happening? Oh my God. His bye week situation is horrific he's projected for 55 with the current roster out there right now that week. So he's got Burrow, Etienne, Chase, Pitts, Gabe Davis, and
there's like 6 teams on a bye in week 12.
It must be it. That might be it then. Interesting.
Yeah,
Anywho,
the apocalypse this year.
The apocalypse week 12. I didn't know that. So, all right, let's go to our next team on
right
the list.
The playoffs start for some people.
It's gotta be awful, dude. The NFL fucked that up pretty bad for fans.
There was no bye weeks in like week 7 or 8 this year or something like that. You remember that? It was like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there was like
a bye week season. There's just none.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened there. All right. So we're gonna go over to the Philadelphia Plague. So currently sitting at 4-5, has a higher playoff percentage chance than the Bombers. Maybe that's because of that schedule. But projected for, he also has a pretty high win finals one here too. They really don't like the Bombers in the finals. I don't know. It's interesting here. But yeah, the Plague, they are in the thick of it. And frankly, I mean, I think we could all agree, and this model shows it pretty well. The top 4 are pretty locked in here. It's going to be that fight for 5, 6, and 7, basically, like which one's going to get the 5 and 6 slots. And Dan is right in the thick of that. So let's go to his squad. Interesting to note, no elite players, I guess, as in terms of this situation here on their war situation. But I can't imagine Jefferson's too far outside of that.
You feel free to call Jefferson not elite. I will.
I'm not going to be the person that does that. He's been great all season, so I don't really know where that's coming from. He's the number. How is he not elite when he's the number 2 receiver on the year? Like, what is the issue here? Like, what am I missing?
Is it lack of because he hasn't had like a ridiculous game. He's consistently.
He had a 20 pointer, but that was like, I mean, yeah, you are right. Like, the spike weeks haven't really presented themselves because every week is a spike week, so it's like they're all good. Like, he hasn't had that 30 though, like you said, like a Chase. I mean, he's 11, 20, 14, 14, 9, 14, 12, 15. Like, it's just rock solid.
Yeah, let's see. Wide receiver 14, 4, 14, 9, 26, 7, 17, 11. So he's had 1 top 5 finish. And they might be weighing it based off of his finish per week.
Maybe. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, like
regardless, for a wide receiver to have their lowest week, wide receiver 26 is stupid, considering how volatile wide receivers can be. That's
right. I mean, I'm looking at this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he's the 10th overall player from a WAR perspective. So it's really, I mean, I don't know what their cutoff is.
Is he the top receiver?
He is the top receiver. So I guess they don't claim any of them as elite for some reason. Maybe it's because we're not a PPR league or something.
That's true.
That might have something to do with it. I really need to look into like why the WAR is the way it is on here, because I do think it's a good stat system. I'm just curious to see what their analytic profile is for that. So anywho, we'll go back to the Dan Schwartz squad here. DK Metcalf is another quality player for this squad. He's definitely been a little hit or miss.
He could really use him though. I'll tell you what.
He sure could. We are in dire straits here at the receiver position. Really, I mean, Devontae Adams has kind of rebounded a little bit here with the new situation, it seems like. So I wouldn't hate starting him at this point. Michael Pittman, really not good, dude. It's really not good. I feel like we should probably talk about him for a minute here.
I mean, I've mentioned it a couple different times about, I thought Tibbs made a really savvy move moving off of Pittman and getting Josh Downs in the offseason.
Yeah, got Downs.
Really liked that.
And picked up Andrews and Likely for what that's worth at this point. But I mean, just to get any sort of, I mean, at that point he had no tight end really, so he was kind of trying to find that elite guy. And I mean, Pittman has not been that big of a loss. Like at this point, Pittman wouldn't be playing at all on Tibbs' team. So it's basically like trading a bench player for starters at that point. So Yeah, he has been rough this season. I mean, he had a couple of like a stretch, I'll say, of solid weeks in weeks 4 to 6, where he finished 12, 9, and 9. So like decent games, but he hasn't had a single game over 12 points this season.
Pittman is currently wide receiver 53 on the year.
53. Yeah, that's where he was being drafted, what the expectation was this season. It's not great. But frankly, he was never a good fit with Richardson. I think everybody kind of knew that, but you still expected. I mean, he got paid, I think, this offseason as well. So, I mean, he's been banged up. He's been not in a good scheme fit. Everything is basically that could have gone wrong for Pittman this year, kind of has. So it's been just
curious to see if he pops up as a trade candidate in the offseason.
Yeah, I feel like in real life, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I feel like his contract might make that pretty hard, but I feel like there is a market for a guy like this where it's, like I hate to say it, but he's kind of got that Alan Lazardi kind of game, like where it's like he's like a rich version of that almost, where he can win with routes. He does have the size, but like he's also not like a game breaker. So I feel like he's settling in maybe to where like he actually should be, which is kind of that like wide receiver, like 20-ish, 30-ish guy. But like right now he's just hurt because, it's just been banged up, and the whole year has been kind of a lost year for him. So I'm not going to judge him too much on this year, but I'll give him another shot next year to see if anything changes with the situation or something like that. So, but yeah, not looking great. And the fact that he is currently starting for this team is not a good thing for the Plague. Looking kind of elsewhere at his roster, I don't know if he set his lineup for this week, but we're looking at Sterling Shepard, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and Keenan Allen in the flex spots, Sean. What do we think about this? I think it's so bad that his screen froze on that face. It's not ideal. Not ideal.
Oof.
And
yeah, it's not
but
good.
Has any player
not good.
helped? I guess I should not any player. Has any two players rebounded their careers and helped the team more than these two guys have helped the damn Schwartz-led Philadelphia Plague? J.K. Dobbins and Kareem Hunt have both just from the ashes been unbelievable players for this squad that absolutely had to have that. Like they could not afford to not have these players hit, and they did.
He really should be like down with Dustin and James and you in the bottom.
I mean, if these two running backs didn't hit, then yes, he is in the elk category to me. But right now, with these players playing the way they are, I mean, they are absolutely in the mix. It is a strange roster construction. Like out of all the teams in this league, like this is the one I look at. I'm like, this is kind of wild. This is like there's a lot going on here. And like, I mean, if you would have asked me before the season if J.K. Dobbins and Kareem Hunt were your starting running backs, I would say there's no chance you make the playoffs. But it's completely the opposite. I mean, Dobbins RB13 on the year. Last 2 weeks have been excellent. New Orleans, he had 12. Cleveland, he had 22 against a great Cleveland defense, especially against the run too. They're a very solid defense. So I mean, Dobbins has proved every doubter wrong. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry in an offense where everybody knows they're going to run it down your throat. I mean, he's playing great football.
Not recently.
What's that?
I will say that they've been very pass happy since they came out of the
that's true. Yes. They have started to like expand a little bit more as far as like what they're doing in the passing game. But honestly, Justin Herbert.
Well, you got fucking Justin Herbert back there. That's what you should be doing.
I mean, like they shouldn't be losing games. Yeah, absolutely. It should not be losing games because you're not throwing enough. Like that's not like you have a good quarterback to do it, and their receivers have been kind of coming along pretty nicely this season. Like, I mean, even Palmer last week had a nice touchdown.
Up. Quentin Johnson, elite wide receiver 1.
I didn't know. I mean, it's like I'm just learning this. You're just telling this to me now. I haven't heard this before. I mean, like, yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing what happens when you put a guy in the right position for him.
Yeah, just run straight. Yeah, just run straight. And
they
still haven't done anything underneath with him. I'm like, guys, like just one drag route, one mesh route, please. Let the man do what he's good at. They just won't do it. Kareem Hunt.
They did it on that play before halftime. Did you see like the
yes? And I was concerned that he was gonna like fumble or something and lose.
He got like 40 yards off of that little crosser, and then with
the 62-yard bomb earlier too. He had like 119 yards at halftime. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get a 200-yard Quentin Johnson game, and he did nothing the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So it's just part of the deal. But yeah. So anywho, Kareem Hunt. Dude, what a great player he's been. He scored a touchdown, I think, in every single game he's played this season. Maybe without week 4 he didn't have one, but everything else he's had one. He's not doing really anything efficient. I'll say that. Like I think his yards per carry 3.73, so nothing too crazy there. But he's getting crazy good volume. I mean, he's 20 carries in each of his last 4 games. He's had a touchdown in every one of those games. I mean, literally for a team that really didn't have anything at running back. Nick Chubb as well really hasn't done hardly anything since he's come back. Obviously, a terrible injury. It's going to be a slow start for him to come back. But he's
scheduled the rest of the year too.
Really tough schedule. He's got Pitt, Denver, Pitt, Kansas City after New Orleans in Week 11. So that's tough. But I'm not so sure that Chubb will get it on the right track this season.
Going back to Kareem Hunt,
sure.
If I were to put my money on that running back situation the rest of the year, I don't feel very good about a running back coming off of a broken leg.
No.
I think it's going to be Hunt the rest of the way.
I mean, I would be surprised if Hunt wasn't a usable fantasy asset throughout. Like, he's going to be on the fantasy radar for the rest of the season, even if he comes back and there's some sort of split. Like, Hunt is still going to be at the very least a flex play. It seems like at this point. So
my mind goes to Tony Pollard months and months after his broken leg, not looking the same. So you're telling me a guy's going to come straight off of IR?
And the way he runs too, like Pacheco runs like a savage. So like that's even harder for him to. Mm-hmm. His whole game is power, using his legs to drive. So I don't know how well that's going to look this season, but I do agree that's going to be interesting to look at. Okay, so we're through the plague. Let's go to the Muskrats, and then for the 3 rebuilders, if you will, we'll kind of make a different look for when we get there. So let's go to the Muskrats, currently sitting at 4-5, projected for a 6-8 schedule with a 35% chance to make the playoffs. So definitely on the outside looking in as far as the projections go here. But he's got some serious work to do to make it there. So let's go back to the teams, and we'll go to Alex's team. And I guess, Sean, let's just start with Puka because that's kind of been.
You want to fight?
What's that?
You want to fight? Throw some punches? Is that what you said?
Maybe. I mean, I didn't see Cortland Finnegan on the field or anything like that, but I mean,
that was a terrible ejection.
Yeah, it was pretty soft. Yeah, it's pretty soft. I'm trying to think. So let me go back here. And so this week, the Muskrats have the cheese fries. So that's going to be a tough one there right out the gate. And then we're going to go to week 11, and then he's going to get the Lake Lure Long Gamers. And then we're going to go week 12, and then he's got the Baton Rouge Bombers. So he's not playing any rebuilding teams for the next 3 weeks, currently sitting at 4-5. So it is going to be a challenge for the Muskrats to get in. He's going to have some big weeks in the next couple of weeks to try to sneak away with one of these wins. Sean, where are these wins going to come from? Is it going to be?
Not from me.
It's probably not from you, but I'm kind of looking at like this is another team that's very thick in the running back kind of portion of like the meat of his team is clearly the running back position.
I don't understand when DeAndre Swift got good. That is one of
a new person.
I am super surprised with what he's done. I'm totally wrong.
I mean, nobody liked him at all, really. I mean, everybody thought that signing was bad. The money, I still think it's kind of bad.
They played a very soft ass schedule for a few weeks.
They sure did. I'm actually clicking on it right now because I'm curious.
I'm still questioning a lot of things.
Well, the Bears in general, like everybody knew through those first whatever, they were 4-2, and they played a bunch of jokes. I mean, they were as big of a fraud team as you could find. So it's finally coming around.
You tell me the good defense that he did his damage against here.
There wasn't any, dude. I mean, like
Rams, the Panthers, the Jags, the Commanders, the Cardinals.
And he didn't even play well against the Cardinals.
No. And frankly, he completely missed multiple blocking assignments in the last 2 weeks, and I'm starting to wonder if
I gotta tell you,
that's going to get him off the field again.
Sean, if the Muskrats make the playoffs, this might be the hardest playoff schedule I've ever seen, like for a running back. Like, I mean, literally weeks 12 to week 16 is a nightmare. Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, just absolute slugfests.
Seattle, with their defensive line healthy, is also pretty good against running backs, I will say. If that's week 17.
Caleb Williams is going to get eaten alive from weeks 12 to week 16. That offensive line is a disaster, and to go against those teams, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be ugly. So that's not a good start for the Alex Morales squad here, as we're trying to think about playoffs. Luckily, playoffs. We got to win a game. Let's see here. We got to... How about this?
Najee Harris.
We got to get to the Najee Harris. He's been really good the last 3 weeks, Sean. So I think since our last podcast, he's just completely lit it up. I mean, he's been outstanding. He's had 19 points, 17 points, and 14 points in each of his last 3. He had the bye last week. He's going to get Washington this week, so that should be an interesting one again. But he's really turned it on. I think it was the comments about him running soft that really got him going. He's looked like a completely different running back. He's got a little Pacheco in him now. He's got like a little bit of that like angriness. Like
he's like that. Almost, he's not Derrick Henry, but like that. Like as the season goes on, he seems like he gets like a little bit better.
He's always been a workhorse, like volume wise. So like he kind of needs the volume.
He did this last year where he was just awful to start the year, and as the season went on, he just got progressively better.
And I will say this, if you just look at his, he's never missed a game in his entire career, which is, first of all, is impressive. Second, his yards per carry, basically every season has gone up. This year is his best yards per carry at 4.35, which is 0.3 higher than last year. So it seems like I think this is a contract year, or maybe next year is a contract year for him. So it seems like
he's his 5th-year option. This is his contract year.
Yeah, this is it then. So yeah, he's playing for a deal next year. And he also has a somewhat challenging schedule down the stretch here too, so not going to be easy for him. T. Higgins has played excellent football since he came back from his injury, so that's nice. But he is, I believe, he's doubtful to play this week, so he's doubtful with a quad for tomorrow night's game.
Yeah, the Thursday night.
Tomorrow night's game is actually a fun one. You got.
I was gonna rally the troops and see if anybody wanted to watch that tomorrow. So
I think I would be on board with that. I should be available. So let's say tomorrow night we'll do a watch party, because I do, like, from an offensive perspective, there's lots of shit going on in that game, so that should be fun. Some implications there. Yeah, T. Higgins has been excellent since he's come back from that injury in the first couple weeks of the season, but obviously with the last couple weeks he's been hurt. So it looks like he's not going to play, but that's a guy that Alex absolutely has to have play if he wants to.
Well, he's got his handcuff.
That's true.
Mike Gesicki.
Who knew that Mike Gesicki was the handcuff?
Shrewd move.
It was a nice move.
We shit on Alex a lot. Not gonna lie.
Nice move. I mean,
he earns a lot of it, but that was good.
Yeah, like when I saw him in the flex before the game on Sunday or whatever, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of fun." And then it just didn't. Then it was like a 5 for 102 touch. I was like, "Jesus!" It was like, "Wow, okay, alrighty then. Take it easy, Mister." It's really good play there. So, yeah, it's funny because the rest of the season has been an absolute nightmare. But Alex has always done this his whole career in fantasy. Is every once in a while he'll hit on that Joseph Randall for 25 points, or just some random ass player goes off, and you're like, all right, Alex, I see you. You got that one. So that's a fun one. And then let's see. I do think we should talk about Hubbard for a second, because of Brooks coming off of the IR and being activated onto the 53. We were kind of talking about it before the stream started, but what the hell is Canales doing talking about, Brooks might not play at all this season? It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it.
I just don't believe that. Just because like they
How?
had an opportunity to leave him on IR, then I don't.
Yeah, just leave him. And even, I mean, unless the thought process was they wanted him to like be, part of the game plans and like kind of get his feet wet with like the actual like NFL game, which makes sense to me. Then we'll put him on the roster or whatever. But like, I mean, is there any reason to not play them?
I don't think so. Right now, I think he's going to take the Miles Sanders role, where Sanders is getting like 20% of the snaps, and then Chuba's been playing around 80 the last few weeks. I think that's where it starts, and then just depending on how it goes is how it goes. Like if he looks good, he might eat into that. If he doesn't, it's just kind of like get your feet wet kind of rookie stuff. So
yeah, I'm not expecting him to eat in a giant workload of any kind here basically for the rest of the season. He's always been a 2025 play, and then Hubbard, who I believe is in a contract year this year, maybe not if it's not this year, it's next year. Hubbard has been very solid this season, and I will absolutely take my lump with that one because I'd never thought he was going to be anything special at all. He has absolutely looked good this year.
If Alex gets in the playoffs, the two guys that are going to really help his team in the playoffs just based off of the schedules are going to be Ramondre and it's going to be Chuba.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really mention Ramondre, but I would like to see what his schedule looks like. So yeah, he's got a week 14 bye. I didn't even know we were doing buys that late.
Oh, we're doing it.
That's crazy. But yeah, he does have a nice schedule. Excuse me. Yeah, so I mean, like you said, Hubbard, Stevenson. I mean, once again, we're talking about this league. Every team that we've mentioned here in the top 5, 6, 7 teams, they've all had these quality running backs. Even Dan's team with the two that he's picked up here, like Dobbins, and like it doesn't look good on paper, but like these guys, this is what's winning the league right now is these running backs. So very important, and clearly the reason that these teams are where they're at. From the receiver position, I mean, we've talked shit about it all year. How do we feel right now? I mean, like this.
I don't think his receivers are very good.
I don't think they're good. I don't think anything's really changed from that standpoint. Oh, there's a classic roster clogger. Ooh, I want to see who the league.
He's on IR.
Once we're done with, yeah, that's not fair, Sue. But let's at the end of this, I want to go back and see who the worst war is of all the players. So
Can you beat Samaje Perine? Probably not.
Well, he's not even a roster clogger according to this. So there's some weirdness going on here, but.
Mahomes, the roster clogger.
That is crazy. But that's like, is he that? He's not even that far off from like a Kyler Murray this year.
They should get sued for like defamation for putting that there.
I mean, he's negative 0.2 WAR. I mean, that's crazy. It must be a 4-point touchdown league or something. There has to be some like I can't. There's no reason for this. Like in any league, he's not a clogger. At the very least, he's just like a bench piece. At the very least.
Let's see.
But he's only averaging 18 points a game. So, like, let's see. If he's averaging 18 points a game in here, what's he averaging in our league? Can we find that out somehow?
I'm already on it.
It looks like he's averaging more.
He, on average, Mahomes is QB 21.
That's not clogger, but it might be unless if they consider a QB3 a clogger. If he's number 21,
he's tied with Aaron Rodgers in points per game.
That is crazy, actually.
And we just shit on Rodgers.
We were just I mean, they had him here as a roster clogger as well. So
and Mahomes was just QB4 this week. So it was worse.
He started everybody against the Bucs. Everybody knows that. So
yep.
Very interesting. Yeah, he's QB 17 on the season. I mean, not ideal. For a guy that you traded for to hope that he was that elite guy. It just has not happened this season. I mean, this clearly was his best week this year, but I think he gets Denver next week, so it'll be a little bit back towards reality, I think.
He's 18. Sorry, I don't know what kind of filter I had on. Sorry.
I see 17, so I don't know.
Him and Rodgers still tied though, 18.5 points.
Anywho, it's like so the quarterbacks here are not as it stands right now. Obviously, there's some good weeks here. Let's look at Mahomes' stretch schedule. He's got Carolina in week 12. He's got Vegas week 13, so that's helpful. But then he gets Chargers, Cleveland, Houston, 14 through 16. So that's not ideal, really.
Home against Houston is good. Houston stinks on the road.
Yeah, they have not been good on the road. I just think it's interesting for this team because, like, I think this team is absolutely needing elite players to kind of get them through, especially like these tough games, like the next 3 weeks he's got here against the Cheese Fries, the Bombers, and I forgot what the other one was, but 3 really good teams. I just like if Mahomes is going to show up as QB 18 week in, week out like that, I just don't see it, man. And then of course Laporta also has been a little bit up and down too with just overall usage. So I'm just not feeling that good about this team outside of the running backs. I mean, like the running backs are kind of working right now, but there's not a whole lot else that's working.
Where would you put Puka as a wide receiver the rest of the year?
Rest of season, I would say maybe wide receiver 10 to 15, somewhere in there.
So I would say he's like a fringe top 20.
Okay, so you're lower on Puka rest of the season.
Because he just doesn't score touchdowns. He didn't score touchdowns last year either, and he's been hurt. So it's hard to...
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't getting like 15 touchdowns or anything.
I mean, availability counts too, so...
I mean, it's just going to depend, like... if he has that floor of like 80, 90 yards a game or whatever, like that's fine. But like in this league, especially in this league and with this current roster construction where you don't have anybody else at the receiver position that's going to have a spike week, like I just don't know how it gets done in the playoffs. I can see him maybe sneaking in somehow, but it would take, I think it's going to take a lot. I think it's going to take a lot to get there, especially with this tough 3-week stretch he's got ahead of him. So anywho, all right. So we're an hour and 30 in. And we have talked about all the contenders, I would say. So we have the other 3 squads here. The Los Angeles Lambs at 2-7, and then the Elk and the Armadillos both at 1-8. The sledding doesn't get a whole lot easier for the Armadillos, I'll say that. We have the Battle Axes this week, so we're expecting to get absolutely smoked as usual. But then next week we have a tank bowl, big tank bowl. We got Elk versus Armadillos in week 11, so that should be a fun one. And then the Lambs will be playing the Lionheads, so they're probably going to take an L there too. So that's going to be a big shaping piece of this end of the roster. And I don't want to say, I really don't want to spend too much time on these teams because I think we all know where they're at. I think we all know that these are rebuilding squads. But is there anything? I guess since we haven't talked too much about just trades overall, do you see what could you see? Do you see like a team like Tibbs making more moves? Do you see a team like the Lionheads making a move, or even the Battle Axes trying to kind of back in, or even the Plague for that matter? I mean, we're just talking about how the Plague are really struggling in the depth department. Are you seeing any potential trades, or is it kind of feel like it's going to be kind of just a boring trade deadline?
I was trying to pinpoint players on these bottom 3 teams of like, do they make sense on this roster to just be on this roster by the end of the year?
Right.
Your team, for the most part, there's not, I mean, it really just depends on how crazy you want to get. I think there's nobody that's like too old where you're like, I guess I can just trade him away. But like, outside of like maybe like a Jaylen Warren for like a light price, maybe somebody wants to add depth, maybe Alex somehow finds a way to make a move that way he just kind of gets some nice handcuff kind of action going on there just in case. But outside of that, I didn't really peg anybody on your team specifically. Maybe like a Jake Ferguson if anybody wants to move for a tight end.
Yeah, I thought about both of those guys, and frankly, I mean, just to be completely transparent with the league, like McCaffrey has been receiving offers. He has been receiving offers from multiple teams. I will say he's a really hard guy to trade right now, like at this exact moment, because we don't know how he looks coming off of whatever this weird injury is. His value, frankly, hasn't been this low in quite a while. So it doesn't feel like I'm gonna. Yeah, I got to figure out how to make money on this thing. So that's basically where I'm at with Christian McCaffrey. How do I make money on this thing? So the thing is, like, for my team, it's really challenging because I did not expect to be in this position at all. I was hoping for a playoff spot this year, and I'm hoping he's going to be a part of it. And if I look at my roster construction for 2025, like, if I am truly going to be in the mix again, which I think I would be if everybody is actually healthy and functioning in a reasonable level, then he's a guy I would want to have on my team. The hard part is I don't know what he looks like. So if I'm not going to move him this week, I need to see how he plays against the Bucks. Honestly, if he does end up playing this week, and I think that might help make my decision. If he looks good, then great, I'll keep him, or his value go up for the trade. But I don't have any reason to move him right now. I don't think.
If I'm you, and this doesn't help my cause because I'm one of the people that has tried to trade for McCaffrey, like I could easily tell myself looking at your roster, like, okay, the start of next year, I've got 2 of the top 5 running backs, possibly the wide receiver 1 and Nico Collins. The tight end 1, I think everybody would agree Bowers will be the tight end 1 going into next year. And potentially the QB 1. Why would I be?
That's kind of where I'm looking at it. That's the way I'm looking at it. Like for next year, if I want to contend and be a real contender, I feel like it would be in my best interest to keep him. Now for this season and to try to, like, let's say I want to, really try to get Ashton Jeanty or something like that. And like, let's say he ends up on the Cowboys, which seems like a popular mock draft spot for him right now. Like, do I want 5 years of Jeanty or whatever? Like,
they got like 4 picks left, and
they're idiots. So it's very possible. It's such a Jerry thing to do too. Well, he's the best running back since Barry Sanders. I'm gonna take him. Like, it's such a Jerry thing to do. So it is quite a predicament because it's like I could really go in either direction and try to get a different running back that way. But then like I would really hate myself if I just gave up the MVP basically of like fantasy football over the last like 2-3 seasons. So I'm holding for now. But maybe in a couple weeks, next week before the deadline, maybe something gets done. But I've definitely heard offers. I'm just not really like in a big rush to make that move right now. So, but I understand the arguments for really keeping him or getting away or just letting him move on. So, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of other stuff. Sorry.
Moving on to a different team because I
Sure.
think we expanded on yours quite a bit.
Yes.
Dustin's team is definitely the team where if you're looking for just like a nice piece to add, like bench depth or like maybe like a solid starter, that's the team that I would be looking at as like maybe moving off of a couple of guys just to really ensure because he's going to have so much draft capital coming in. He's going to have a roster crunch.
He's going to have a problem next year.
Like where does a guy like? I think the just most low-hanging fruit on this team as far as like a trade candidate's got to be Darnell Mooney.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
He's 27.
He's like wide receiver like 12 in the year, isn't he, or something?
He's a wide receiver 1 or fringe 1.
I'm gonna look it up.
He's wide receiver 9.
That's crazy.
Like you're selling him at his peak. Most
likely. He's a 27-year-old player
now,
already.
We're a shrewd league. We're not gonna bite on like flashes in the pan as much compared to other leagues. So maybe you're not going to get exactly what you think you're going to get for him, like what you think you deserve for him, but you can get something.
Oh, for sure. You're gonna get a good asset or player. Now the question is like, if you're Dustin, like are you trying to get more draft picks at this point? I don't think you should. I don't know how, unless it's like a premium one and like you're maybe upgrading one of those picks. So like, let's say it's like Mooney and a 3rd or Mooney and a 4th for like maybe like something higher, like that might work. But I'm having a hard time like with his team because I don't know how you can maybe unless you trade an asset for or a pick for an asset, like maybe, but
it's going to be like Mooney and something for an asset.
Or it's got to be a package of players. Like it's got to be multiple players for like one asset. Like I don't know how you can. He can't take on any more players. Like I just don't see it. I mean, he's got how many freaking picks does he have next year?
I definitely like was looking at like different like mock trades for our league and like Mooney and something for like Bucky Irving was something that I looked at.
Sure.
Scavelli needs a receiver. Bucky Irving is a great piece to have. But his running backs are what's going to win him the league if he stays healthy for the most part. So like, What does he need on his roster? That's the kind of like thing that
No, that deal kind of makes sense because that's something that, for Dustin's team, actually, like, he's going to have a roster spot next year if he, makes that trade. Like, Bucky Irving will be on that roster. But I'm sitting here looking at his picks. He's got 8 picks in the top 2 rounds next year. So none of those picks are cuttable players by any means. And then the following year, he's got another 7 picks in the top 2 rounds. So, like, at some point, some of these assets have got to get moved around.
We're hurtling towards him doing like a 4 or 5 round 3 or 4 picks for like a second or first round pick or something.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where we're getting at. It's like it feels almost like NBA like at this point, where we're trading like 28 fucking first round picks and shit.
He's the Oklahoma City Thunder.
It's kind of what it feels like, honestly. Yeah, like, I mean, great problem to have all this draft capital, and frankly, like, there's a lot of talent on the Elks team. Like, there is a lot of good players. So, like, it's a great situation to be in, but it's going to take a lot of massaging to try to get this to, like, work out and have an actual formidable 30-man roster next year. I don't see how you could take on any more players at this point. So I feel like we're going to have to start consolidating at some point to make that happen for the Elk. But interesting for sure to see how that plays out. I think that might be it, Sean. I think we can wrap it up there. Good discussions. I'm not going to leave without finding out who the worst WAR player is. Hold on a second. We gotta see this here. WAR, Mitch Trubisky.
Oh, well, he's a waiver. Who's the worst? Clayton Tune.
Clayton Tune.
But who? Like,
he's higher than Deshaun Watson, and he didn't even play. No, he didn't even play, Sean. Oh wow, they really got Matt Stafford low. Holy shit!
Who's the worst?
Who's the worst actual position player?
Can you filter it by
Zach Pascal?
Filter it by position and then who's on a roster.
Oh yeah, let me get rid of quarterback.
Just do the flex if you can. The flex players.
Get all this crap out of here.
All right.
Oh.
Now who's the worst player? It's Isaiah Davis.
So worst player on a roster is Isaiah Davis and Xavier. So James has 2 of them.
Not surprising.
Daniel Bellinger. I like Daniel Bellinger. He just never gets a chance.
Poor guy.
Will Shipley. That's not that bad.
Wonder who's like the first decent player.
Jonathan Mingo. Oh! That's hilarious, dude. What a bad trade.
Jesus.
Oh my god. Like, Craig Reynolds is better than him.
Can you, real quick before we go, can you filter just the quarterbacks? I want to see how they.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point. Let's try that. So they got Lamar.
Starters. What the fuck?
Yeah, this is fucked. There's something messed up here. I mean, I guess at its core, you can see like who they think the best like players are.
Yeah, look at that difference though between
Justin Fields.
Look at that difference between Mayfield and Hurts, just as like points per game. That is.
Yeah, I mean that's a significant drop off there. And Hurts has just had a pretty big week this past week too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels kind of cool off a little maybe. Interesting. Very interesting. All right. Well, maybe the quarterbacks aren't the best for this, but I'll have to do some more market research here to see what the deal is with these quarterbacks. So, all right. So with that, we will wrap up this podcast and we'll see you guys very soon. And we'll catch you then.